After studying this module, you should be able to know about the concept of self-actualization, learn about the Jonah complex, understand the meta needs and pathology, analyze the basic characteristics of self-actualization, and evaluate the concept of self-actualization. Introduction. Self-actualization is a word that one has seen in more than a few principles, a lot of times in somewhat dissimilar means. The terminology at first presented initially by the well-known Kurt Goldstein aimed at the intention to attain individuals' full potential. Communicating individuals' resourcefulness, pursuit for transcendent explanation, search of understanding, as well as the need to provide to culture are some of the instances of self-actualization. In Goldstein's understanding, this is the individual's dominant reason considered as the main purpose, assumption that the main aim of an individual is to actualize as completely as much as possible is the elementary effort, the motivation of becoming self-actualized. Similarly, Rogers had stated that the restorative dynamism in psychotherapy, individuals' inclination to realize oneself, to grow and progress one's potentialities, to express as well as stimulate all the capabilities of the individuals. The notion stood recognized as well as became important through the notion of need theory as the final level of psychological progress which could be attained as soon as all elementary as well as psychological necessities are basically satisfied, and the actualization of the complete individual proceeds. Even though he refined this perspective, self-actualization could be viewed as related to terms and notions like discovering oneself, insight, self-realization, as well as self-exploration. The notion stood recognized as well as became important through the notion of need theory as the final level of psychological progress which could be attained as soon as all elementary as well as psychological necessities are basically satisfied and the actualization of the complete individual proceeds. Self-actualization could be viewed as related to terms and notions like discovering oneself, insight, self-realization, as well as self-exploration. The notion stood recognized as well as became important through the notion of need theory as the final level of psychological progress which could be attained as soon as all elementary as well as psychological necessities are basically satisfied, and the actualization of the complete individual proceeds. Self-actualization could be viewed as related to terms and notions like discovering oneself, insight, self-realization, as well as self-exploration. Now let us summarize this module. Self-actualization is a word that has been used in more than a few concepts but has been used a lot of times in somewhat dissimilar means. This word originated at first presented by the renowned theorist Kurt Goldstein for the reason to comprehend one's full capabilities. Maslow thought that we often fear our best side, our talent, our creativeness, and so on, referred to as Jonah complex. Maslow suggested a different kind of motivation for self-actualizers called meta-motivation, which is also known as be-motivation or being. Meta needs are conditions of existence, for instance, traits like goodness, exclusivity, as well as flawlessness, instead of precise, objective matters. Unable to gratify meta needs is damaging as well as producing a type of maladaptive tendency that affects the complete growth of the individual. Maslow identified 14 meta needs. The number is not important as ultimately they all become one. On the other hand, metapathology inhibits self actualizers from conveying, using, and fulfilling their capability. They possibly will come to feel stranded and miserable, unable to pinpoint a cause of these feelings or recognize an objective that might relieve the anguish. Maslow felt that human beings are often faced with situations in which they must choose between growth and safety. Safety choices are appealing, but only growth choices move us towards self actualization. In order to understand the concept of self actualization, Maslow studied extraordinary people such as Einstein, Roosevelt, Gandhi, and so on, rather than mentally ill or neurotic people, writing that the study of unhealthy people will result in reporting a negative psychology. Maslow estimated that only 1% or less of the population can be termed as self actualizers. Maslow used the biographical method, the archival research, to study the lives of several individuals and found similarities in their lives that can be called self actualizing tendency. On the basis of this work, he concluded that such people share around 15 common traits.
Self actualization. Maslow believed that we are aware of our motives and drives for the most part of our life. We would all become psychologically healthy individuals with a deep understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Maslow developed his own theory known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The highest level in the hierarchy is known as the need for self actualization. According to Maslow, many people could reach this level, but very few could ever master it. Self actualization refers to a complete understanding of the self. Self actualization is determined by the maximum realization and fulfillment of our potential, talent, and abilities. To be self actualized refers to truly know who you are, where you belong, and to feel like you have accomplished all that you set out to accomplish. Example, when food and safety are difficult to find, for instance, Maslow suggests that beauty and understanding have little significance for us. The ultimate goal is self actualization or realizing your full potential. Self actualization is an intricate need whose nature sometimes seems challenging to understand. Kurt Goldstein, from whom Maslow borrowed the term, saw it as a drive to actualize one's capacities, which is found in every organism. Kurt Goldstein's book, The Organism, a holistic approach to biology derived from pathological data in men's 1939, defined self actualization as the tendency to actualize as much as possible the organism's individual capacities in the world. The tendency towards self actualization is the only drive by which the life of an organism is determined. Nevertheless, for Goldstein, self actualization cannot be assumed as kind of goal to be attained sometime in the future. At any instant, the organism has the essential tendency to actualize all its capacities, its whole potential, as it is present in exactly that moment, in exactly that situation, in contact with the world under the given circumstances. Under the influence of Goldstein, Abraham Maslow established a hierarchical theory of human motivation in Motivation and Personality, 1954. According to Maslow, self actualization can be described in the following way: a musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write if he is to be ultimately at peace with himself. What a man can be, he must be. This need we may call self actualization. Maslow believed that a very small percentage of people reach an ultimate level of psychological health called self actualization. Maslow asserted that lower needs to be partially satisfied in order to move to higher levels. For example, hunger striker, refugee worker, and rock climber move forward. Once the basic needs in Maslow's needs have been achieved, the needs for self actualization and cognitive understanding become significant. Jonah complex. Maslow thought that we often fear our best side, our talent, our creativeness, and so on. According to him, discovery about our potential along with happiness bring fear of new responsibilities and duties, fear of the unknown. Maslow referred to this fear the Jonah complex because humans are born with a natural tendency to move in the direction of psychological health, and failure to reach self actualization can be theoretically termed as abnormal development. In other words, fear of being or doing one's best, a condition that all of us have to some extent, is termed Jonah complex. Maslow assumed that many people allow false humility to suppress their creativity and thus they fall short of self actualization. For women, Maslow believed because achievements is well thought out to be unfeminine and they fear social rejection. However, while Maslow's belief may apply to some women, such fear of success is not present in all women. Pet Mount in 1988 found difference among women in terms of their fear of success. In comparison to women with a low fear of success performed well on masculine oriented tasks. Meta motivation or B motivation. Maslow assumed that self actualizing persons vary from others in terms of their basic motivation. Maslow suggested a different type of motivation for self actualizers called meta motivation, sometimes called B motivation or B being. The word meta means after or beyond. Meta motivation then designates that it goes beyond psychology's traditional idea of motivation. Maslow offered a list of meta needs towards which self actualizers develop. Meta needs are states of being such as goodness, uniqueness, and perfection rather than specific goal objects. Failure to satisfy meta needs is harmful and produces a kind of meta pathology which affects the complete growth of the personality. Maslow identified 14 meta needs. The number is not important as ultimately they all become one. On the other hand, metapathology inhibits self actualizers from conveying, using, and fulfilling their potential. They may come to feel helpless and depressed, unable to pinpoint a source of these feelings or identify a goal that might alleviate the distress. Maslow proposed that these are needs that do not comprise balance or homeostasis. Once involved, they are felt continuously. In fact, they are likely to become stronger as we move. They involve the continuous desire to fulfill potentials to be all that you can be, hence the term self actualization. Some of meta need and meta pathology are truth in contrast to dishonesty, goodness instead of evil, unity, wholeness, and transcendence, not unpredictability or forced choices, aliveness rather than deadness or the mechanization of life, uniqueness in contrast to bland uniformity, perfection and necessity instead of sloppiness, inconsistency, or accident, completion not incompleteness, justice and order instead injustice and lawlessness, simplicity rather than any sort of unnecessary complexity, richness in contrast to environmental imperishment, playfulness not grim, humorless drudgery, meaningfulness instead of senselessness, beauty rather than ugliness or vulgarity, effortlessness not strain, self sufficiency in contrast to dependency. In Maslow's view, poor socialization among young people may affect the movement towards self actualization. Maslow believed this attitude results because many teenagers have parents whom they do not respect, parents who are confused about their own values. They never punish their children or stop them from doing things that are wrong. As a result, they lose their respect for adults. Maslow believed that movement towards self actualization is possible for such people only when they give up their mistrust and not only seek weakness in adults but also their strengths. Maslow felt that human beings are often faced with situations in which they must choose between growth and safety. Safety choices are appealing, but only growth choices moves us towards self-actualization. To encourage such choices in children, parents should avoid both overprotection and excessive approval. When all goes well, the child finds that the growth choice offers delight and the safety choice leads to boredom. This finding was confirmed by a study that reported lower levels of boredom proneness on self report scale among undergraduates scoring high on the short index of self actualization. Characteristics of self actualized individuals. In order to understand the concept of self actualization, Maslow studied extraordinary people such as Einstein, Roosevelt, Gandhi, and so on, rather than mentally ill or neurotic people, writing that the study of unhealthy people will result in reporting a negative psychology. Maslow estimated that only 1% or less of the population can be termed as self actualizers. In his book, based on the lives of famous people who were self actualizers according to Maslow, he used the biographical method to study the lives of several individuals and found similarities in their lives that he called self actualizing tendency. And on the basis of this work, he concluded that such people share around 15 common traits which have been described below. Efficient perceptions of reality. Self actualizing individuals perceive reality more accurately than others and are more at ease within it. They have an unusual ability to become aware of the fake, the phony, and the dishonest. They hold an aptitude to be impartial about their own strengths, potentials, and limitations. They are not terrified of the unknown and can put up with the doubt and uncertainty associated with the perception of the innovative and ignorant. Self actualizing people are more aware of their environment, both human and non human. Their estimates of the upcoming from whatever details they have acquired in hand at the time seem to be more often precise and accurate in comparisons to the others. Comfortable acceptance of self, others, nature. Self actualized person accept who they are and others with their strengths and shortcomings both. They respect and esteem themselves and others. In addition, they are honest, open, and genuine without persistence or facade. On the other hand, they are not self satisfied but are concerned about discrepancies between what is and what might be or should be in themselves, others, and society. They are aware of the fact that no one is perfect and don't seek perfection in others or themselves. It has been observed that these individuals have a decent appetite for food. They appear to reveal in their sexual lives without pointless inhibition and so on for all the physiological impulses closely associated to self acceptance and to acceptance of others is their lack of defensiveness, protective pattern, and their aversion for such pretensions in others. These people can't ghoul hypocrisy trying to impress in conventional ways. These are all lacking in themselves to an unusual degree. Autonomy. The third trait of self actualized individuals is autonomy. Self actualizing individuals are not dependent for their main gratifications on other people or culture or means to ends, or in broad sense on extrinsic satisfactions. Self actualizers are free from dependence on outside people. They have a tendency to be resourceful and independent. Rather, they are reliant for their own development and continued growth upon their own potentialities and latent resources. Nobody is born autonomous, and henceforth none of them is totally independent of people. Autonomy can be accomplished only through satisfactory relations with others. Nevertheless, the assurance that one is loved and accepted without any conditions can be a dominant force in contributing to feelings of self worth. Problem centering. Self actualizing individuals are driven to solve the problems of life and have a problem centered positioning. They are guided to help solve problems for others in contrast to just focusing on self. In other words, they are concerned in solving problems of others. Self actualized persons are concerned with solving problems outside of themselves, comprising helping others and finding solutions to problems in the external world. Solving these problems is ever so often is a significant focus in their lives. In broad sense, these individuals help without any selfish motives. They are able to distinguish between trivial and important issues which demand attention. These people are often motivated by a sense of personal responsibility and ethics. Detachment and the need for solitude. Self actualizing individuals appreciate solitude and privacy. It is frequently likely for them to remain calm, composed, and undisturbed during the time of the clashes that which upsets others. They may sometimes even give the impression to be asocial as they don't look in for social support. As such individuals are independent and depend on themselves and not others for their satisfaction. It is possibly associated to a persistent sense of security and self sufficiency. They feel comfortable in both the situations, that is, being with people or being alone. As they have already fulfilled the need of love and belongingness, they don't go about spending time in impressing others and thus make responsible choices. Spontaneity, simplicity, and naturalness. Self actualized people are spontaneous in their internal thoughts and outward behavior, despite the fact that they can conform to rules and societal expectations. They also tend to be open and unconventional. These individuals are true to themselves instead of being how others want them to be. They are guided by internal motivation to grow and actualize themselves and their potential. These individuals are not scared to display their true self and emotions. They are able to express joy, sorrow, elation, disgust, anger, other deeply felt emotions. Their behavior is manifested by simplicity and naturalness, and by lack of artificiality or staining for effect. These individuals are simple and rarely hide their feelings and don't play a role to satisfy the society, although sometimes they might do so to avoid hurting others. Continued freshness of appreciation. Self actualizing individuals have a pleasing ability to appreciate over and over again the simple pleasures of life. They experience admiration, pleasure, and appreciation in their everyday world, such as nature, children, music, and sexual experience. The self actualizer seems to regularly renovate gratitude of life's basic belongings. There is an innocence of vision like that of an artist or child. Even simple experiences continue to be a source of inspiration and pleasure to them. The mystic and peak experiences. Self actualizing persons described feelings at one with the creation, resilient and soother than ever earlier, complete with beautiful and good, and so forth. Self actualizing people generally have mystic or peak experiences or times of deep emotions in which they transcend self. In the course of peak experience, they experience feeling of trance, amazement, and wonder with feelings of limitless horizons opening up, feelings of unlimited power, and at the same time feelings of being more helpless than ever before. The experience culminates with the belief that something exceptionally significant and cherished has occurred, so that the person is to some extent changed and held together by the experience that has a carry-over effect into everyday life. Gemini in Scaphologiophole is the term first introduced by Alfred Adler, is the one which defines well the essence of the feelings for mankind expressed by self-actualizing individuals. These people have a deep feeling of identification, sympathy, and affection in spite of the occasional anger, impatience, or disgust for the humankind, as if they were all members of the same family. One's feelings towards his brothers would be on the whole affectionate, even if these brothers were foolish, weak, or even if they were sometimes nasty. They would still be more easily forgiven than strangers. Thus, we can conclude that identification, sympathy, and affection for mankind, kinship with the good, the bad, and the ugly, older brother attitude. Truth is clear to such individuals, and they can see things others cannot see. Interpersonal relationship. Self actualizing individuals have deeper and insightful interpersonal relations than any other adults. They are capable of more blending, greater love, perfect identification, more eradication of the ego boundaries than other people would contemplate conceivable. These individuals show benevolence, affection, and friendliness to almost everyone. At the same time, self actualizing individuals have these principally deep ties with relatively a small number of individuals. Their circle of friends is rather small, the ones that they love profoundly are few in number. The democratic character structure. Self actualizing individuals are usually thought to be democratic people in the deepest probable sense. These individuals are said to be possessing all the noticeable democratic characteristics. They can be and are friendly with everyone of appropriate character, irrespective of class, education, political belief, race, or color. Due to this trait, they are not even cognizant of these differences, which any other individual might consider as noticeable and significant. Not only do they possess these qualities, but their democratic feeling goes deeper as well. Such individuals are well grounded, and they feel that it is possible to learn from anybody who has something to teach them, no matter what other characteristics he may have. Discrimination between means and ends and good and evil. Self actualizing individuals are not persistently irresolute about the distinction between right and wrong in actual living. Despite of the fact that whether or not they can verbalize the matter, they rarely show it in their day-to-day living, the turmoil, the confusion, the conflict that are so common in the any other person's ethical relations. These individuals reveal in the here and now getting to goal, not just the result. They make the most tedious task an enjoyable game. They have their own inner moral standards which might sometimes appear amoral to others. Philosophical, unhostile sense of humor. Self actualizing individuals have an intense, unhostile sense of humor. These individuals do not make fun of others, don't laugh at jokes that saddens other people, or are intended to point at others' inferiority. They can make fun of others in general and also has an ability to laugh at oneself, especially when they are foolish. They are motivated towards thoughtful humor that brings about a smile on others, is intrinsic to the situation, and at the same time is spontaneous. A conclusion that was common to most of the self actualizing individuals was their sense of humor is not of the conventional type. For them, those things are not funny, which is usually perceived by an average person as funny. As a consequence, they do not laugh at hostile humor or superiority humor or authoritarian rebellion humor. Creativeness. Self actualizing individuals are extremely imaginative and creative. These individuals, like others, have a creativity potentially inherent in them, but in others it is usually stifled by acceleration. Such individuals look at things from a new, fresh, naive, novel way in contrast to the others who view things in conventional manner. It is a universal characteristic of all the people studied or observed. There is no exception. Each one shows in one way or another a special kind of creativeness or originality or resourcefulness that has certain unusual characteristics. They seem to be specially gifted with the drive and a capacity to reflect upon things in their unique way as a child does. Resistance to enculturation. Self actualizing individuals are well adjusted in the simple sense of agreement with the culture. These individuals get along with the culture in numerous ways. Nevertheless, it would not be wrong to say that in a certain philosophical and meaningful sense, they resist inculturation and maintain a certain inner detachment from the culture in which they are immersed. These individuals transcend the environment rather than just cope with it. Let us summarize what we have learned. Self actualization is a word that has been used in several psychology theories a lot of times in somewhat dissimilar ways. The term was at first introduced by the orgasmic theorist Kurt Goldstein for the motive to realize one's full potential. Maslow thought that we often fear our best side, our talent, our creativeness, and so on, referred to as Jonah complex. Maslow suggested a different type of motivation for self actualizers called meta motivation. Meta needs are states of being such as goodness, uniqueness, and perfection rather than specific goal objects. Failure to satisfy meta needs is harmful and produce a kind of meta pathology which affects the complete growth of the personality. Maslow identified 14 meta needs. The number is not important as ultimately they all become one. On the other hand, metapathology inhibits self actualizers from conveying, using, and fulfilling their potential. They may come to feel helpless and depressed, unable to pinpoint a source of these feelings or identify a goal that might alleviate the distress. Maslow felt that human beings are often faced with situations in which they must choose between growth and safety. Safety choices are appealing, but only growth choices moves us towards self-actualization. In order to understand the concept of self-actualization, Maslow studied extraordinary people such as Einstein, Roosevelt, Gandhi, and so on, rather than mentally ill or neurotic people, writing that the study of unhealthy people will result in reporting a negative psychology. Maslow estimated that only 1% or less of the population can be termed as self actualizers. Maslow used the biographical method to study the lives of several individuals and found similarities in their lives that he called self actualizing tendency. On the basis of this work, he concluded that such people share around 15 common traits.